Welcome back, dear friends. I'm Davis, and you've found your way again to the curious case. What's in your cup tonight? Peppermint, chamomile, or something stronger? Tonight's mystery begins not with noise, but silence. A silence held too long. A truth no one dared to speak. Miss Marple arrives at a snowbound house. Warm smiles, cold secrets. Everyone polite, everyone hiding something. So pour your tea. Listen closely. Because tonight, a secret kept too long finally speaks. And before the night ends, someone will pay its price. The train slowed. Steam rose across the platform. Miss Marple stepped down, neat and calm, her small case in hand. A driver waited. "Greystone Manor, ma'am?" She nodded. The road climbed through snow, no sound but the crunch of tires and wind. Lights appeared on the hill, soft, golden, careful. A house too grand to feel friendly. A house that kept its secrets. The front door opened, before she could knock. A young maid stood there, pale face, trembling hands. "Miss Marple? Do come in, ma'am." Her voice shook, not from cold, from something else. Inside, warmth, firelight, scent of pine, too much silence between the words. Miss Marple removed her gloves slowly. "Dreadful weather for Christmas Eve," she said kindly. "Yes, ma'am, dreadful," a woman's voice called from the drawing room. "Miss Marple, you made it through the storm." Mrs. Harcourt, tall, elegant, smiling too quickly. Her husband followed, straight-backed, watchful. Colonel Harcourt's handshake was firm, but his eyes flicked away too soon. "Such a pleasure," he said. Miss Marple smiled. "The pleasure will be mine." He cleared his throat. "Let's join the others." The drawing room glowed. A tree stood in the corner, candles unlit. 3 guests turned. A doctor, a lady in burgundy, a quiet man by the fire. Each spoke politely. Each smiled, just a little too long. Mrs. Selby, graceful dark eyes, voice too smooth. Dr. March, cheerful tone that didn't match his face. Edward Harcourt, the brother, nervous, glass unsteady in his hand. They talked of snow, of trains delayed, of roast pheasant and decorations. Not one word about why they looked uneasy. Not one question about why she'd come. Miss Marple listened. She noticed every pause, every glance. The maid in the corner kept her head down, folding napkins that were already perfect. When someone laughed, she flinched. Strange. Mrs. Harcourt poured sherry. "To a peaceful Christmas," she said. No one echoed it. Miss Marple set her glass down untouched. The fire popped. Somewhere in the house, a clock ticked far too loud. She looked at their faces, polished, composed. But beneath that calm, fear moved like a shadow. Something was wrong here. Something already broken. And when she smiled back at them, kind, mild, harmless, they all relaxed at once. She noticed that, and thought quietly to herself, why did they all look relieved? When she walked in, the tea was poured. Steam curled between them. Everyone smiled too much. Mrs. Harcourt spoke first. "We were saying how lovely it is to have you here, Miss Marple." "So kind of you," Marple replied. "I do enjoy company at Christmas." The Colonel nodded stiffly. Always room for one more at Greystone. But his eyes flicked toward his wife before he said it. Mrs. Selby leaned forward, smooth and graceful. "You're from Street Mary Mead, aren't you? Such a peaceful village." "It can be," Marple said, "except when it isn't." A small silence followed. Cups touched saucers. "Doctor," March cleared his throat. "We were just discussing India. Mrs. Selby lived there once." "Twice," Mrs. Selby corrected, smiling. "My late husband adored the heat," Edward murmured. "I thought he hated it." The smile froze. He did, at the end. Miss Marple sipped her tea. She watched the maid in the corner refill cups that were already full, hands shaking, eyes lowered. Mrs. Harcourt spoke too brightly. "The Colonel served in India as well, years ago." He gave a short laugh. "Different part of the country, different world entirely." "Yet you both knew a man named Avery," Dr. March said carelessly. The air shifted. No one answered. Marple set down her cup. Avery. An uncommon name. Mrs. Selby's spoon clinked. Coincidence, I'm sure. The Colonel changed subject. The roads will close by nightfall. Snow like this traps us all in, Edward muttered. Some might prefer that. Edward, his sister-in-law warned. Conversation limped on weather, local gossip, decorations. Every remark safe on the surface, sharp underneath. Miss Marple smiled, gentle as ever. Such a lovely house, she said. I imagine it has heard many conversations. Mrs. Harcourt's hand trembled. Too many. The maid dropped a two-streed. My husband. My teaspoon. No one moved to help her. She picked it up quietly and vanished through the door. Marple looked around. One story after another, none matching the next. Every memory told twice, slightly changed. She counted 4 lies in 10 minutes, each spoken with charm. The clock struck 3. The Colonel said, "Tea always clears the air." It didn't. The air felt heavier now. Miss Marple folded her napkin, calm and precise. She'd seen this before, families smiling through fear, guests pretending not to hear. Someone was lying, but the lie was neat, practiced, perfect. She glanced toward the firelight and thought quietly. Someone lied, but too neatly. The clock struck 4. The sound broke the calm like a crack through ice. A knock followed. 3 sharp raps at the front door. Every cup stilled. Mrs. Harcourt looked at her husband. Expecting anyone? He shook his head. No one travels in this storm. The maid hurried to answer. Her shoes slipped on. The rug. The latch clicked. Cold wind rushed in along with a stranger. Tall man. Snow on his coat. Eyes too calm for the weather. He removed his hat slowly. "Apologies," he said, "but I believe I'm expected." The Colonel's face drained of color. "Mr. Avery." The name changed the room. All warmth gone. Mrs. Harcourt's hand tightened around her teacup. "Mrs." Selby's breath caught. Edward looked at the floor. Avery smiled. "I wrote ahead. Business matter. Couldn't be delayed." His tone was smooth, practiced. He spoke like a man who enjoyed causing discomfort. The Colonel forced a laugh. "You might have chosen a better night." "Ah," Avery said softly, "but some nights can't wait." He handed over a small envelope, sealed in red wax. "For your signature, as agreed." The Colonel didn't take it. His hand twitched. Then he nodded once and placed it on the table. Mrs. Selby rose, her voice too light. "Do join us for tea, Mr. Avery." "How kind," he said. "I never refuse an invitation." The maid brought another cup. Her hands trembled so much the spoon rattled. "Careful," Avery said quietly. "Steady hands are useful, especially in this house." The girl fled. No one spoke. Only the clock ticked. Avery poured his tea, slow and deliberate. The spoon moved in circles, metal against china. "So," he said, "it's been years. Some of you haven't changed." His gaze drifted from face to face, landing briefly on Mrs. Selby. Her eyes lowered. Dr. March coughed. Edward shifted in his chair. Marple watched silently. She didn't look at Avery. She watched them. Every small movement, every nervous swallow, every half-smile meant to look polite. Avery leaned back. "Snow's getting worse," he said. "Seems I'll be staying the night." Mrs. Harcourt tried to protest, but no sound came out. He smiled again, thin, satisfied. "As I said, I'm expected." The tension didn't break. It thickened. Miss Marple stirred her tea once, calm as ever. No one noticed her eyes. They weren't on the guest. They were on the people pretending not to hate him. The room smiled, but every smile was wrong. The dining room glittered with silver. Candles flickered. Plates waited. Everyone was seated almost politely. Mrs. Harcourt smiled too much. "Such a blessing," she said, "to be together on Christmas Eve." Her voice trembled. The Colonel raised his glass. "Indeed, together." Avery smiled across the table. "I do enjoy family gatherings," he said softly. His tone wasn't kind. It slid through the air like a knife under silk. Mrs. Selby spoke quickly. "How fortunate we avoided the storm." "Yes, Doctor," March said, though it nearly stranded half the village. "Imagine," Avery interrupted, "being stranded with secrets left unfinished." Forks froze mid-air. No one breathed. Miss Marple's eyes shifted. Between them, the maid, poor girl, refilled glasses. Her hands still shook. "Easy, my dear," Marple said gently. "Thank you, ma'am." They began to eat. Conversation returned in small, nervous bursts. The clink of cutlery covered the silence. Edward cleared his throat. "London was dreadful this year," he said. "Business slow?" Avery asked. Edward blinked. "How would you know?" "I know everything about London," Avery replied, "especially about debts." The Colonel's knife scraped the plate. "Enough shop talk. This is Christmas." Avery chuckled. "Of course. Christmas, the season of forgiveness." No one answered. Mrs. Selby smiled, forced. "Tell us, Miss Marple, do you enjoy village festivities?" "Oh yes," Marple said. "Villages are full of life and memory." Avery leaned forward. "Memory can be a dangerous thing." His eyes met hers. She held the gaze calm. "I find it useful," she said. Mrs. Harcourt stood. "Another glass of wine, everyone." Her tone begged for distraction. Glasses lifted. "To peace," she said. "To family," added Dr. March weakly. Avery smiled. "To truth." No one repeated it. The glasses clinked. Wine trembled. A drop spilled on the white cloth, dark red, like blood. Laughter followed, nervous, thin. Mrs. Harcourt dabbed the stain. "It's nothing," she whispered, but her hand kept rubbing long after the mark was gone. Miss Marple observed every face. The Colonel's jaw tight, Edward's eyes darting toward the door. Mrs. Selby biting her lip, Dr. March pretending to enjoy his food. Every person hiding behind polite noise, every word balanced on fear. The maid entered again with the pudding. Steam rose. The smell of almonds lingered faintly. Miss Marple noticed. So did Avery. "Delicious," he said. "Tastes almost dangerous." Mrs. Harcourt flinched. He laughed softly. "Just a joke." The clock chimed 8. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, silence pressed close. The Colonel lifted his glass again. "One final toast," he said. His hand shook just once. "To better times." Everyone drank, even Avery. The laughter returned louder, brittle, desperate. Then came a sound no one expected. 3 knocks, hard, sharp. The room fell still, and then the doorbell rang again. The second knock echoed through the hall. Not gentle, not patient. The sound of someone who already knew they were expected. The maid froze. "Mrs." Harcourt whispered. "Don't answer it." Avery smirked. "Running from visitors now?" The Colonel stood. "I'll see to it." But before he reached the door, it opened. A boy entered, soaked from the storm. He carried a leather case. "Message for Colonel Harcourt," he said. His voice cracked. "Urgent." He handed over a sealed envelope, shivering. Then he left no goodbye, no glance back. The door closed. The clock ticked. Everyone waited. The Colonel stared at the envelope. Red wax. No return mark. He didn't move to open it. "Go on," Avery said quietly. "You've been expecting that one." "Mrs." Harcourt's hand gripped the tablecloth. "What is it, Henry?" He didn't answer. He broke the seal slowly, eyes darting toward Avery. Paper rustled. Marple watched his face change color, draining, lips tightening. He folded the letter once and set it aside. "Nothing important," he said. Avery laughed softly. "That's not what it said." The Colonel glared. "You'll keep out of my business." "I am your business," Avery replied. Dr. March leaned forward. "Perhaps this isn't the time." "Oh, it's the perfect time," Avery said, "since everyone's already pretending." The room stiffened. Miss Marple looked down at her napkin. She didn't interrupt. She only listened. Avery's tone changed, cool, measured. You all owe something, don't you? Money. Loyalty. Silence. He turned toward Mrs. Selby. You remember Cairo? Her spoon clattered. I don't. You do. He looked at the colonel. And you, old friend, you remember a man named Avery Sr.? The colonel's face hardened. You leave my father out of this. I can't, Avery said. He signed the debt. You inherited it, Mrs. Harcourt whispered. Henry? He didn't look at her. He was staring at the paper again, hands trembling. Avery sipped his wine. Don't worry. I'm not cruel. Just thorough. He tapped the table once. You can pay, or confess. The air felt heavy. Mrs. Selby stood abruptly. You think you can threaten us? He smiled. Oh, I already have. Miss Marple's gaze drifted from face to face. Every reaction told her something. The colonel's silence was guilt. Mrs. Selby's anger was fear. Mrs. Harcourt's tears were confusion. Dr. March's calm was not calm at all. She said softly, Some debts can't be paid with money. Avery looked at her. And you would know that, Miss Marple? Only by watching others learn too late, she replied. Dessert arrived sweet, steaming, untouched. No one ate. No one looked at anyone else. Marple watched the spoons rest cold beside the plates. Every guest lost in their own thoughts. One thought louder than all the rest. By dessert, one of them had decided to kill. The house slept uneasy. Snow pressed against the windows. The fire downstairs had burned low. Midnight struck. One chime. Two. Then silence again. And then it came a scream. Sharp. Real. Terrified. Chairs scraped. Doors flew open. Footsteps pounded through the hall. Mrs. Harcourt shouted. What was that? No one answered. Another scream followed. Shorter this time, cut off halfway. Miss Marple was already standing, her candle steady in her hand. She didn't run. She listened. The sound came from upstairs. Second door on the spit. Right. The maid's room. Dr. March rushed ahead. Stay back, he said, but everyone followed. The door was locked. Edward hammered on it. Elsie, open the door. Nothing. Just the echo of their own panic. The colonel's voice cracked. Break it down. A crash. The door gave way. The smell hit them, first smoke and something bitter. A candle overturned. The curtains blackened by flame. And on the floor, Elsie, the maid. Still, eyes wide open. Mrs. Harcourt gasped. Oh God, she's burned. Dr. March knelt beside her. No pulse, he said. She's gone. Mrs. Selby clutched the wall. She was fine an hour ago. Edward's voice shook. She served the pudding. Avery said nothing. He just watched. Miss Marple moved closer. She knelt, careful not to step on the scorch marks. Her eyes studied the body. Then the small things. The tipped candle holder. The empty glass beside the bed. A torn piece of cloth clutched in her hand. She didn't touch it. She only looked. Poison, Dr. March muttered. Must be. Mrs. Harcourt sobbed. No, not her. She was just a girl. Avery whispered. She wasn't just anything. The colonel turned. You keep your mouth shut. The argument started. Fear spilled everywhere. Voices rose. Accusations flew. She was alone. She knew something. She shouldn't have opened her mouth. Miss Marple stood quietly. Her voice was soft but steady. No one should have been alone tonight. The fire was stamped out. The smell of smoke lingered. They carried the body downstairs, wrapped in a blanket. Mrs. Harcourt trembled. She must have fallen asleep with the candle. No, Marple said gently. The flame didn't start the silence. It ended it. Everyone stared. What do you mean? The colonel asked. Marple met his eyes. I mean, she knew something, she said. And someone knew she did. Avery smiled faintly. Tragic, he said. So sudden. Marple looked at him. Not sudden. Prepared. Dr. March turned to her. You think it was murder? I think, she said quietly. that her silence had become too heavy to carry. The clock struck 1. No one spoke after that. Even the wind outside seemed to hold its breath. Miss Marple's eyes drifted to the dark window. Her candle flickered once. Her silence ended in a scream. The morning came grey and slow. No one had slept. The fire was cold, the tea untouched. Elsie's body had been taken to the study, covered. Still, the smell of smoke lingered in the hall. Miss Marple sat at the table, hands folded. Her voice was calm. "Now then," she said softly, "perhaps we should talk." Mrs. Harcourt stared into her cup. I can't imagine why she'd hurt herself. "She didn't," Marple said. The Colonel looked up sharply. "You sound very certain." "I am." Dr. March tried to fill the silence. "Perhaps she fainted, dropped the candle, inhaled smoke," Marple interrupted. "You said she fainted, yet you told me last night her eyes were open when you found her." He blinked. "Yes, open. Shock, maybe. Shock leaves many signs, Doctor. Not peace." Avery smiled faintly from his chair. "I suppose this means someone here is a murderer." No one laughed. "Mrs." Selby's voice trembled. "She was a servant. Who would harm her?" Marple turned her head slowly. "The same people who used her silence." The Colonel stood. "Enough of this. We'll wait for the police." "They'll want facts," Marple said. "Best to prepare them." She looked around. Who saw her last? No one answered. Then Edward spoke. "I did. Around 10. She brought the pudding," Mrs. Harcourt whispered. Avery's eyes narrowed. "And the pudding had almonds, didn't it?" "Yes, Mrs." Selby said quickly. "I made it myself." Marple nodded. "Strange. She told me last night she was allergic." The room froze. Mrs. Selby went pale. "She never said that." "She didn't," Marple replied. "To you." Dr. March leaned forward. "You're implying the pudding killed her?" Marple shook her head. "No, I'm implying someone hoped it would." Avery laughed once, short and dry. "Careful, Miss Marple, you're making enemies." "Not yet," she said quietly, "but someone will make one soon." Mrs. Harcourt stood up suddenly. "Please stop. We should pray, not accuse." "Prayer," Marple said, "is best said after truth." The Colonel's voice broke. "She was just a maid. She didn't understand." Marple looked at him. "Understand what, Colonel?" He hesitated, then shook his head. "Nothing. Forget it." Marple's eyes softened. "It's always the small things that reveal us," she said. "Not grand gestures, not speeches, just a tone or a pause." The silence grew, heavier. No one looked at anyone. Avery poured himself tea, slow, precise. He stirred once. Mrs. Selby reached for her own cup, hand shaking. He watched her, too closely. Marple noticed. Her gaze moved between them, calm, quiet, patient. She didn't see the tea. She saw the eyes, and the fear that flashed for just a second. He looked at her cup, too quickly. The night returned heavy and still. Snow whispered against the windows. Greystone Manor had gone quiet again, too quiet. Miss Marple sat near the fire, pretending to knit. The others had gone to their rooms. At least, that's what they said. She listened. Old houses talk when people don't. A creak, a whisper, a door closing too carefully. Voices drifted down the corridor. Low, urgent. A man's tone tight with anger. A woman's reply almost pleading. Marple rose, silent as the shadows. She didn't sneak. She simply moved. Her candlelight trembled across the wall. "You promised me." "Ah," woman hissed. "I promised nothing," came a sharp reply. She knew those voices. "Mrs. Selby. Dr. March." Marple paused by the stairwell. The conversation below was broken by fear. "If she talked to Avery—" "She didn't. You don't know that. She's dead now, isn't she?" A gasp. Then quiet. Marple waited. The steps faded. The hall grew still again. She turned toward her room. Halfway there, she stopped. Another sound. Soft weeping. Different voice this time, Mrs. Harcourt. She opened the door a fraction. The lady sat by her vanity, head in her hands. A letter lay torn on her lap. Marple said gently, "Forgive the intrusion." Mrs. Harcourt looked up, startled. "Oh, Miss Marple, I couldn't sleep." "Few can tonight," Marple said. "Was that the Colonel's letter?" The woman hesitated. "Yes, from the solicitor, about Avery's claim." Her hands trembled. "He means to ruin us." Marple's eyes softened. "Sometimes ruin isn't what a man brings," she said. "It's what he hides." Mrs. Harcourt blinked. "You think my husband?" "I think everyone here is hiding something, including you." Tears welled. "I knew about the debt, but not the rest." "What rest?" She shook her head. "He said I'd be safer not knowing." Marple nodded slowly. "Silence again," she murmured. "It never keeps anyone safe." A floorboard creaked in the hallway. Someone was listening. Marple turned the candle toward the door but saw nothing, just shadows, long and patient. She stepped back into the corridor. A faint light glowed under the study door. The Colonel's voice, quiet but strained. Avery's voice answered him smooth, cold. "You'll sign it," Avery said. "I won't." "You will, before morning." Miss Marple froze. The phrase echoed. "Before morning." She heard movement. A drawer opened. Something metallic scraped, maybe a revolver, maybe a key. Then footsteps, soft, deliberate. The door closed. Marple backed away. Her heart beat steady, not fast. She had heard enough. Enough to know this night wasn't done. The fire in the hall guttered. Wind pressed at the windows. The old clock struck 2. Miss Marple returned to her chair, calm as ever. But her thoughts were sharp now, cold as the snow outside. Someone was waiting for dawn, or for death. The storm worsened by dawn. Wind scraped across the windows. The house felt smaller, tighter. No one spoke over breakfast. Dr. March stirred his tea 3 times and stopped. Mrs. Selby pretended to read the paper. The Colonel didn't eat. Mrs. Harcourt just stared at her plate. Avery was nowhere to be seen, Miss Marple noticed. So did everyone else. At 9, the maid entered, pale and shaking. "Sir, someone's in the library," her voice broke. "He's not moving." They ran. Marple followed slowly. The library door stood open. Avery sat at the desk, his head bowed over a page, a cup beside him, cold, untouched. Dr. March knelt, checked the wrist. "Dead," he said. The Colonel stepped back. "Good Lord," Mrs. Selby whispered. "It's happened again." Marple looked at the table. The paper before him was blank. Only the pen had moved across the page, scratching nonsense lines. A man trying to write. Failing. "Poison," Dr. March said again. "Smell that? Bitter almonds." Mrs. Harcourt covered her mouth. Mrs. Selby turned away. Edward muttered. He had it coming. The Colonel barked, "Quiet, boy." But no one disagreed. Marple studied the faces. Not one person surprised. Relief flickered in the room, quick. "Guilty," she said softly. "He was blackmailing someone." The Colonel's head snapped up. "Why say that?" "Because he said he would collect signatures, and yet he's the one who never signed anything." "Doctor," March frowned. "You mean someone stopped?" "Him." Marple nodded. "And cleaned up after." Mrs. Selby turned toward her. "He must have drunk from his own cup." "Perhaps," Marple said. "Or perhaps someone offered to refill it." The silence grew sharp. Eyes darted, each one polite, fearful. Mrs. Harcourt whispered, "There was a note. He was writing one." "Where is it?" Marple asked. "I saw it when I came in," she said. "It was on the blotter." Now it was gone. Edward looked toward the fire. Ash drifted up the chimney. Marple followed his gaze. The poker leaned near the grate, still warm. Mrs. Selby spoke again. "Shouldn't we call the police?" "In time," the Colonel said. "Now," Marple corrected. 2 deaths before breakfast is a pattern, not an accident. Dr. March rose. "Then we're trapped here until they arrive." The wind howled outside. "Yes," Marple said, "and whoever killed him knows that too." The maid stood frozen near the doorway, her apron twisted in her hands. Marple smiled gently. "Don't be afraid, my dear." "I'm not," she whispered. "I just saw someone leaving the library before you came." Every head turned. "Who?" the colonel demanded. She swallowed. "I don't want to say." Marple nodded slowly. "Then you've answered enough." The fire hissed. The air thickened with smoke and unease. Another secret gone. Another silence born. She looked once more at the desk. The note was gone, but the fear remained. The day dragged on. Snow still fell, soft and endless. No police yet. The phone line was dead. Miss Marple gathered them in the drawing room. No more separate whispers. No more polite pretending. "Best we talk," she said. "Properly this time." The colonel sat stiff in his chair. "Doctor?" March stood by the fire. Mrs. Selby avoided eye contact. Mrs. Harcourt looked pale and small. Edward stared at the carpet. Marple's voice was calm. "I'll begin simply. Who?" "Last saw Mr. Avery alive?" No one spoke. Then Dr. March said, "After dinner, I suppose." "You're certain?" He nodded. Marple turned to Mrs. Selby. "You agree?" She hesitated. "Yes, I think so." "You think?" Marple repeated. "Not no." She flushed. "It was late. I can't remember every minute." Marple smiled faintly. "Sometimes memory bends to what we hope is true." The colonel leaned forward. "This line of questioning is pointless. The man is dead. That's all that matters." "It matters who made him so," Marple said. Mrs. Harcourt's voice shook. "He came to my room around 9, wanted to see my husband. I told him the colonel had gone to his study." Marple asked softly, "And did he?" "Yes." "Did you see him go?" Her lips parted. "No, but I heard footsteps." Dr. March frowned. "I went to bed before 10. Marple looked up sharply. "You said that before. You said she left at 10. He blinked. "She?" "Elsie," Marple said. "You told us she left your company at 10 that night." He hesitated. "Did I? I meant earlier." The room froze. Marple tilted her head. "Funny how time changes when fear grows." Mrs. Selby's hands twisted in her lap. "He's confused. We were all upset." "Upset?" Marple said softly. "Or involved?" The colonel stood suddenly. "This is indecent." "Truth often is," Marple replied. Edward spoke for the first time. "He argued with Avery," he said quietly. All eyes turned to him. "Who did?" Marple asked. "My uncle. They fought in the study. About the letter. I heard shouting." "Did you see them?" "No, but I heard Avery say, 'I'll tell them all.'" Mrs. Harcourt covered her mouth. Tears slipped down. "He promised not to," she whispered. Marple looked at her gently. "What did he promise, my dear?" Mrs. Harcourt shook her head. "Nothing. Please, nothing." The clock ticked between them. The wind whined through the chimney. Marple looked from one to another. "Someone moved his body," she said quietly. Dr. March frowned. "What do you mean?" "When I found him, the chair was turned away from the desk. Yet the ink on his pen had dried straight, not smudged. He didn't fall. He was placed. No one breathed." Marple's voice softened further. "You've all lied a little, but one of you lied completely." The colonel muttered. "You're guessing." "No," Marple said. "I'm listening." The silence thickened again. Every face told a different story. Every story hid the same fear. Miss Marple folded her hands, her voice calm, her question final. "If no one spoke, who moved the body?" The storm eased. Grey light spilled across the carpets. The air felt cleaner, but no one breathed easier. Miss Marple asked them to return to the library. "The room itself will speak," she said. The colonel refused at first, then followed her anyway. The body had been taken away. Only the smell of almonds remained. The cup still sat on the desk, untouched since morning. Marple looked around slowly. Doors locked, windows shut, no sign of struggle. And yet, she said quietly. Someone entered this room after Avery died. Dr. March frowned. Impossible. We were all upstairs. Were we? Marple asked. He blinked. You think one of us? I think one of you knows more about locks than I do. Mrs. Harcourt clutched her shawl. But the door was bolted inside. Yes, Marple said. Bolted neatly. Too neatly. She pointed toward the keyhole. The bolt slides easily with a knife tip. Try it. Edward reached over, pressed the metal edge, and the bolt clicked free. He stared. So anyone could have done it. Anyone. Marple agreed. Mrs. Selby whispered. Then why bother locking it at all? To delay discovery, Marple said. And to suggest he died alone. The Colonel's voice grew sharp. You can't accuse us of trickery. We were all shocked. Marple looked at him gently. I don't accuse, Colonel. I notice. Doctor. March folded his arms. If you're so sure, explain how it was done. Not yet, she said. First, we must understand why. She walked to the desk. The ink blotter was new. No blot marks, no impressions of writing. Someone replaced this, she said softly. The note he wrote is gone, but so is the sheet beneath it. Mrs. Harcourt whispered, to erase his last words. Marple nodded. Or to remove a name. Edward spoke suddenly. But no one could open the windows. They're sealed. Marple ran her finger along the frame. No, only painted shut. Fresh paint, too. Yesterday's. Mrs. Selby's voice wavered. That's absurd. Who would paint windows in winter? Someone wanting to keep cold air out, Marple said. Or truth. Dr. March scoffed. You're talking nonsense. Am I? Marple said quietly. She moved closer. When you entered, Doctor, you touched the chair first, not the man. Why? He hesitated. Reflex, he said. Or guilt, Marple replied. Doors can be locked from guilt, too. The Colonel stepped forward. This is madness. Marple turned. No, Colonel. Madness hides in silence. Logic hides in plain sight. She walked to the window and pressed the latch. It lifted easily. A sharp intake of breath filled the room. Mrs. Harcourt whispered. It wasn't locked. No, Marple said. It was pretending. Snow blew in. Fine powder landed across the sill. She pointed down. 2 footprints outside. 1 pair returning. The room went still. Every face turned pale. Marple looked back at them calmly. The door told one story, she said. The window told a different story. Afternoon dimmed. The house had grown colder. No one spoke unless spoken to. Miss Marple stayed in the library after the rest had gone. She moved quietly, touching nothing, watching everything. She noticed small things, creases, ashes, threads. A faint scent lingered near the hearth. Not smoke. Paper. Burned paper. She lifted the poker, still black at the end. On the edge of the grate, a scrap of parchment clung to the iron. Half a word visible. Debt. She leaned closer. Another corner stuck to the tiles, singed and curled, ink blotted. Avery's handwriting. She recognized the shape of the letters from his place cards at dinner. He had written something before he died. Someone had burned it. The door creaked. Mrs. Harcourt entered, eyes red, hands twisting a handkerchief. I thought you might want tea, she said softly. Thank you, Marple replied. But I'd rather company. The woman hesitated. Company? Yes, it's easier to think aloud. Mrs. Harcourt sat down slowly. The cup rattled on its saucer. I can't bear this house anymore, she whispered. Marple smiled gently. Most houses only echo what's already inside them. Mrs. Harcourt looked up. You think my husband did it? I think your husband is afraid, Marple said. He has reason. Her voice broke. He's been trying to hide the truth for years. Avery knew everything. The loan, the false signatures, the property transfer. If it came out, Henry would lose everything. Marple's eyes softened. So he paid for peace? He tried to. Avery wanted more. Mrs. Harcourt's breath trembled. He said if Henry didn't sign, he'd tell the world. Henry begged him to stop. And then Avery died, Marple said. Mrs. Harcourt's eyes filled. You don't understand, Miss Marple. Henry didn't kill him. He couldn't. He hasn't the strength. Perhaps not in his hands, Marple said. But fear can kill just as quietly. Mrs. Harcourt stared at the burned papers. What's that? Something Avery wrote, Marple said. Someone tried to erase it. She held it up. The woman flinched. I don't know anything about that, she said quickly. You were in here last night, Marple said softly. You opened the curtains. I saw your reflection from the hall. Mrs. Harcourt's mouth trembled. I wanted to see the snow, that's all. Marple didn't argue. She only nodded. Then she said gently, when truth frightens us, we burn it. But ashes still speak. Mrs. Harcourt's hand shook harder. She whispered, he begged me not to tell. He said the shame would finish him. So I burned the letter. That's all I did. Marple watched her quietly. No triumph. No judgment. Just the sad calm of understanding. Mrs. Harcourt covered her face. I didn't mean harm, she whispered. I only wanted to protect him. The wind moaned outside. Somewhere a door slammed. Miss Marple laid the half-burned scrap gently on the table. Her voice was almost kind. He begged me not to tell. So I didn't. The drawing room was still. No fire now, only the ticking of the clock. The air held that strange chill before truth. They were all there. The Colonel, Mrs. Harcourt, Mrs. Selby, Dr. March, Edward, each one pale, waiting, pretending they weren't. Miss Marple stood near the window. Her voice was calm. I think it's time we stop whispering, she said. No one replied. She turned to the Colonel first. You said you were in your study at midnight. Yes. And your wife said she heard you there. He nodded. She didn't see you, though. He frowned. What are you implying? Only that sound is easy to fake. A man can leave a gramophone playing and walk away. Mrs. Harcourt gasped. Henry? He raised a hand. Quiet. Marple looked next to Dr. March. You were the first to reach Elsie's door. Yes. You broke it open? Yes. Strange, she said softly, because the mark on the hinge shows the door had been opened earlier, from the inside. He hesitated. Impossible. Not if someone unlocked it to return later. Mrs. Selby spoke suddenly. This is cruel, Miss Marple. You have no proof. Marple smiled faintly. Proof hides in what people don't say. Edward's voice cracked. Then why not accuse us all? I don't need to, Marple said. You've done that for me. The Colonel stood up. Enough riddles. Say what you mean. All right, she said. I mean every person in this room chose silence over truth. Every one of you knew what Avery was doing. Mrs. Harcourt whispered. He threatened us all. Marple nodded. And you all hoped someone else would stop him. Her eyes moved from face to face. Someone did. Dr. March snapped. You're guessing again. No, Marple said. I'm listening again. She turned to Mrs. Selby. Your voice? Trembled when I said almonds. You said you made the pudding. But the maid served it, didn't she? Mrs. Selby's lips trembled. She did, and she said it tasted wrong. The Colonel's voice broke. Stop this. Elsie tasted the poison first, Marple said quietly. The cup meant for Avery. She knew before anyone else, and she screamed. Mrs. Harcourt began to sob. Marple's tone stayed steady. 2 deaths, 1 pattern. Every lie spoken in kindness, every truth buried under fear. Doctor, March said bitterly, you make it sound moral. It is, Marple said. Murder born from silence always is. The wind pressed against the windows. The clock ticked louder. No one looked at each other. They couldn't. Marple folded her hands. Elsie tried to speak. She paid for it. Avery tried to confess. He paid more. Her voice fell lower, but none of you stopped them. Not one. The Colonel whispered, we didn't know. Marple shook her head. You knew. Her gaze moved across them one last time, calm, steady, final. You all heard her cry, she said softly, and none of you moved. No one spoke. The room had stopped breathing. Only the clock ticked slow, steady, merciless. Mrs. Harcourt's sobs broke the quiet. Her husband turned away. Dr. March stood rigid. Mrs. Selby stared at the floor. Miss Marple waited. She never raised her voice. She didn't need to. At last, Mrs. Selby whispered, "It wasn't meant to happen." Every head turned. Her voice was small, shaking. "She wasn't supposed to die." The colonel took a step forward. "What are you saying?" Mrs. Selby lifted her head. Tears traced her powdered face. "I only wanted to stop Avery, that's all. Just stop him." Marple's tone stayed calm. "How?" "I put the poison in the brandy," she said. "Just enough to frighten him. He'd been blackmailing me for years. He knew about India, about my husband." Her voice cracked. "I thought I could scare him into leaving. I thought he'd drink it and fall ill, not—" She couldn't finish. Dr. March exhaled slowly. "You used cyanide." "It wasn't meant for him," she said quickly. "I switched the glasses. But Elsie, poor girl, she took his first. I didn't see." Mrs. Harcourt covered her mouth. The colonel muttered, "Good God." Mrs. Selby's shoulders shook. I heard her scream. I wanted to run to her, but Henry stopped me. He said we'd be ruined. He said silence was the only way. Marple nodded once. "And so you stayed quiet." She didn't accuse. She stated. Plain. Simple. Mrs. Selby wept harder. When Avery found out, he laughed. He said he'd make us all pay. He said he'd tell the world that I'd killed her. "So you met him last night," Marple said softly. "Yes. He said he wanted money. I brought the letter for Henry to sign. But Avery poured himself a drink. First. He didn't know I'd refilled the decanter." Dr. March whispered, "So he drank his own death." Mrs. Selby nodded. "It wasn't hate," she said. "It was fear. I couldn't bear another word from him. He ruined everything he touched." Miss Marple looked at her gently. "Fear makes strange companions," she said. "We think silence keeps us safe, but it only keeps us trapped." The colonel sat heavily, face grey. Mrs. Harcourt sobbed quietly into her handkerchief. Dr. March turned toward the fire, eyes wet. No one spoke further. Marple stepped closer to Mrs. Selby. The woman's hands trembled. She whispered, "I never wanted death. Just quiet. Just peace." Marple touched her arm lightly. "Peace doesn't come from silence," she said. "It comes from truth." Outside, the wind had gone still. Snow fell straight and slow. No noise, no storm. Only the sound of breathing. Mrs. Selby's eyes closed. "I suppose it's over now," she said, faintly. Marple nodded. "Yes, over, but not forgotten." Mrs. Selby bowed her head. "She only wanted peace," she murmured, "and paid for it." Morning light crept across the curtains. The storm was gone. The air smelled of cold and ash. In the breakfast room, the kettle hummed. Steam rose in slow curls. Miss Marple stirred her tea. The spoon clicked softly against the cup. The house was quiet again. No footsteps, no whispers. Just the faint tick of the clock. Mrs. Harcourt sat across from her, her eyes swollen from crying. Marple spoke gently. "Silence begins as kindness, ends as punishment." Mrs. Harcourt nodded weakly. "We meant no harm." "I know," Marple said, "but every secret demands its price." The spoon stilled. Steam drifted upward, twisting in the light. Outside, the snow melted on the steps. Marple watched it fall, slow and certain. Her eyes softened, thoughtful. "Truth always takes its time," she whispered. "Truth cools. Slower than tea. Thank you for staying till the end, my friends. I'm Davis, and this has been The Curious Case." Strange, isn't it? How silence can sound so safe until it isn't. Tonight, Miss Marple reminded us that every secret has a cost, every silence to a shadow. So tell me, down in the comments, would you have kept the secret or spoken, no matter the price? And tell me too, who do you think paid the highest price for silence tonight? Until tomorrow, my dear listeners, another kettle will boil. One quiet lane, one missing letter, one truth waiting. Tomorrow night, Miss Marple will find herself in a village where secrets travel faster than the post. A single envelope vanished before it was ever sent. A message that someone will kill to keep unread. So keep your tea warm, keep your light low, and listen closely, because sometimes the smallest letter holds the loudest truth. Fade to quiet, curiosity lingers.